What's up, guys? Welcome back to King Kraken Sports. You are here now for the 4th annual King Kraken Sports live stream mock draft. That man down in the bottom corner of your screen.
Welcome
joining
back
me,
to King Kraken Sports.
motherfucker.
What's that?
That was actually the video of this because we're about 5 seconds ahead.
Fair.
So let's pretend that didn't happen. Let's start this over again. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 4th annual King Kraken Sports live stream mock draft. Mike here, as always, joining me, that beautiful man down in the bottom corner of your screen, the Billy Ray Cyrus to my Lil Nas X, the Gronk to my Tom Brady, the Antonio Brown to my Antonio Brown, because we all know Antonio Brown loves Antonio Brown. Lawson Morasuti joining us from Halifax, Nova Scotia. How you doing, bud?
I'm good, brother, man. I'm excited to be back for another year with the King Kraken, and I'm ready to get cracking at it. Let's do this.
Yeah, man. So before we get into this was originally going to be 4 of us, but due to schedules, 3 of us still being in school and 1 having a full-time job as well, it just wasn't doable, especially when you're spanning 3 different time zones. That's next year's problem. So it's back with the original 2. Hey, sometimes 2 is better than 4.
That's it, man. Hey, we all we need.
Yeah, exactly.
We all we got. We all we need, man.
Exactly. So, Lawson, for the first time ever, you don't have the first overall pick. I do. The way that this is going to go is I have the odd numbered picks. Lawson, you've got the even numbered picks. We're going to try to get this done in maybe around an hour. We have a tendency to talk for a long ass fucking time, but we're going to try to not do that this year. So give me a minute. I just have to put out the link at up in Twitter and a couple other places where I can get some more people watching if they feel like they want to, which would be cool. Just give me 1 second.
All good, man. All good. Yeah, this offseason's been an interesting one. For sure, there's been a lot of major developments and storylines and different things that will absolutely affect the draft coming up next week. And I'm really excited to see how a lot of those things turn out with the speculations of where's Rosen going. I'm, hoping and praying that he's not coming to us for a second-round pick.
You don't want Rosen?
No, I don't.
Really?
But, I think he's a good player. I think he's got some potential, and he's going to have to develop. And obviously sitting him under a guy like Rivers and Ken Wisenhunt, Anthony Lynn, I think is the best way to go forward with any rookie quarterback is to sit him for a year in a system as opposed to throwing them directly into the fire. But in terms of where we are as a team right now, I don't think that finding our successor this year is wise because we're so close to being on that next step and in the Super Bowl and things like that. I think if we were to waste a second-round pick on a guy who's going to sit for a year or 2, it's not necessarily our smartest move in terms of being competitive. I think this year we invest all in on winning it. And after that, we'll see and assess where Rivers is and go forward with that.
Yeah, I mean, I can dig it. I personally think he's probably going to end up going to Washington. I think that team is just so desperate for a quarterback because they have Case Keenum and Colt McCoy and probably Alex Smith's never going to play again. So, I mean, we shall see. But let's get into it. So I'm going to lead off with the Arizona Cardinals at number 1. And I really think that this pick's been kind of set in stone for the better part of 4 months now. I think that you don't go ahead and you don't hire a failed college coach that was fired from his alma mater for never being able to do a fucking thing on offense. If you don't want to draft the guy that he absolutely loves first overall. Now, obviously, they still need to get ownership on board. And there is a chance that the Bidwells say no, like we traded up for Josh Rosen in the first round last year, make it fucking work. I just feel like Arizona is going to do what Arizona does. And they were relevant for a couple of years, but for a large portion of their existence, they've been a doormat due to, in part, making really dumb decisions up front. And I think that they see Russell Wilson in Kyler Murray, and they see him twice a year. So they want their own version of that, so they're going to go Kyler Murray at number 1.
Wow, interesting. No, and again, I would agree that this pick is probably pretty set in stone. If you're the Arizona Cardinals, I think it's smart to go ahead and do this because you then have the option to see who's going to take better to Cliff's system.
Mm-hmm.
And then develop both guys into that system and see who's going to give you the best chance for success. And you're always going to be able to trade that guy afterwards because someone's always going to trade for a young franchise quarterback. Whereas if you take Nick Bosa or whoever else you want to take, Quinnen Williams, Josh Allen, whatever, and Josh Rosen doesn't pan out in the system, well, then, okay, you have a nice pass rusher, but you still don't have a quarterback, right? You want to invest in that quarterback going forward to make sure that you hit the home run out of the park. And someone's always going to trade for him, but nobody's not going to trade for a defensive end or a pass rusher.
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with it. And this is one of those where I'm like, if it were up to me, this is Bosa.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. I don't have a first-round grade on Kyler.
I'd take Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray is a baller, bro. I think in a similar college system that may adapt a little bit to the pro system, but you look at, the success of some of the quarterbacks similar to him coming out and what they've done in the league, I think his versatility is going to be killer. And I heard a quote the other day. It was actually a good one. It was from, who is it from? Sean McVay. Sean McVay said, you don't throw over people, you throw through passing lanes. And people lose sight of that. And he thinks Kyler Murray is going to be a stud. He said that on the Rich Eisen show. And I thought that was really, really smart. Like, we create passing lanes on purpose. We don't try to just throw it over the guys who are 6'6" every single time because that's not necessarily going to work.
I mean, I have Kyler 30th on my board, and as I was saying before we went live, I've got 22 first-rounders. So
yeah. And again, I think he's a huge preference guy because of, one, his size, two, his kit, two, three, has he really proven himself? He won the Heisman, but one season, so many different.
We weren't sure if he was even going to pick football until the combine.
Yeah, I mean, so many things you could chime on, but in terms of their future development, I think you take 2 Qs and then you trade one later for a first rounder if you want to, and you see who sticks.
Yep. All right, man. So you're up next with the San Francisco 49ers, and if Kyler goes number 1, I think we might know who goes number 2.
See, this is a really interesting situation. I was talking about this with one of my friends in terms of there's a couple ways the draft go. You're either a team that's picking high because you're shit, like the Cardinals, or you're a team that's picking high because of some unforeseen circumstance. Like, you look at the Colts when they took Andrew Luck, they finished dead last because Peyton Manning was playing. They didn't have a terrible team, but they just didn't have their one guy that they needed, right? So San Francisco is now this team where it's like they don't have a terrible roster, and they've done some great things in free agency, but they are second overall because they didn't have Jimmy G, right? They're rotating nobody's at quarterback the whole year. So they're in an amazing position to take any non-quarterback.
The name is C.J. Beathard.
Well, yeah, they take any.
The funny thing is C.J. Beathard, the year he was drafted, and they took him in the 3rd round, he was my lowest rated prospect that season.
Look, he's been okay. He's been okay. He hasn't been great, obviously, but he patched it together as well as he could. Nobody expected him to win the Super Bowl or even 5 games.
I would hope not.
If I'm San Francisco, we've invested so heavily in the interior defensive line in the last couple of years that I want to see those guys develop. So I'm passing on Quinnen Williams. We just traded for D Ford. We gave him a huge contract for that kind of stand-up guy, outside linebacker. But in the scheme that they're kind of running there with Saleh, what's his name?
Robert Saleh, yeah.
Yeah. Blitz heavy. You want to make sure that you set the edge every time that you're bringing the blitz so the quarterback can't roll out of there. You take the best edge defender you got. Give me Lil Bear and Nick Bosa.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the D Ford contract. The funny thing is that's basically a 1-year deal.
Yeah, which is
the option to keep going later.
Yeah.
So I mean, hang on, let me just type that in. San Francisco, Nick Bosa. I mean, that's one of the more obvious picks. I mean, Nick Bosa, for the first time, I think since really I started doing this full year, year round, where I start watching in June, July, August, whatever, up until the draft. This is the first time a guy's ever started the year as my number 1 player and finished as my number 1 player.
Yeah.
I mean, the second time this happened were beginning of the process, and that was Teddy. And I started in February that year, so I don't really count that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, I mean, the injury concerns are there. I don't buy into this off-field issue bullshit because, well, he tweeted pro-Trump stuff or he doesn't like Beyonce. That's not an off-field issue. Not liking Beyonce is not an off-field issue.
That's correct. Yeah,
That's called a correct music take.
I think in terms of his injury history, listen, guys have injuries all the time, and his was rather unfortunate, and they're criticizing him for being like, oh, he sat the whole season. Well, obviously, bro, I'm going to be a top 5 pick guaranteed next season. I'm not trying to rush back and tweak something so that I won't be ready for the start of my NFL career.
Exactly.
I think it's fine.
Yeah. All right, so I'm now back on the board with the New York Jets. I think come this time next week, they're probably looking to try to trade out of number 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think that since they don't have a second-round pick this year, they really want to make up for that.
Mm-hmm.
However, we're not trading in this one, so this is if they stick to their guns and take.
Everyone's in their spot.
Exactly. Man, I really want to give them Quinnen Williams because, I mean, Quinnen Williams is just a fucking beast.
Oh, yeah.
And pairing him with Leonard Williams, who's a former number 1 prospect, to me, would just be like unfair. But I think when they swung and they missed at Anthony Barr, they showed their hand. I'm going to give them Josh Allen out of Kentucky.
Right on, man.
I mean,
Josh Allen, I think, has been a very consistent player at his time at Kentucky, and he was part of a huge come up of the program, and he was a cornerstone piece for that, and their sort of rise in the SEC. But it's going to be interesting to see how they use him for sure. You know what I mean? And their sort of transitions of systems and coaches and whatever else. It's going to be exciting to see. Is he going to be a kind of well-rounded outside linebacker? Is he going to have those pass coverage things and those dropout responsibilities? Or is he going to be a Von Miller where it's pin your ears back and let's go get the quarterback?
Well, I mean, funny enough, yes, the Jets took a swing at Anthony Barr, and people were like, why are they paying him edge money? It's like, well, he was an edge rusher in college.
Mm-hmm.
And Minnesota chose to make him an outside linebacker in a 4-3 rather than making him, defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen's much of the same way.
Oh, yeah.
When Kentucky runs a multiple front defense, so he played 4-3 D end and 3-4 outside linebacker.
Yep.
He also can play 4-3 linebacker as well. So he's that versatile type guy with freak athleticism, good traits, and good production. Those guys go high.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, man. You are up on the board with your favorite team in the entire world, the Oakland Raiders. That's a joke.
Yeah, I gotta, get the bad taste out of my mouth with these.
Yeah, Lawson's a Chargers fan, so there's that.
Huge Chargers fan. Anybody else in the AFC West is my absolute rival, and since we've been able to beat up on Oakland the last couple of years, it's now shifted to Kansas City. I'm a huge Kansas City fan currently at these days, but anybody in the AFC West is to me, other than the Chargers. But number 4, I gotta make a pick either way, and if it was up to me, I would, probably give them long snapper from Alabama or something like that. But
Roberto Aguayo.
Don't put it past them. But I think they've made some really good moves in the offseason here, kind of stacking up their roster and making patch moves and things like that on their defensive side of things. They've really been able to get those 1-year signings in to make them more competitive. We all know the AB thing that kind of came through here. But I think if going forward, they're looking for that one guy at number 4 to really hit a home run on and be a part of the team for a long time after all these other guys kind of fold out and leave. As much as I don't want to do it, I think they end up taking Quinnen Williams here. Him being there at 4 for them is a little bit too good of a grace, and we all know how disruptive an interior pass rusher can be. You look at Aaron Donald, you look at some of the other guys up and coming. There's what's his name? Sheldon Rankings, New Orleans. He had a great season before he kind of got hurt and fell off. But if you can rush the passer from the interior of the defensive line, you're priceless. So they got to take Quinnen here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Quinnen's my number 2 overall player. I think that the only reason he makes it this far is just due to teams drafting for need. There's a comment. I guess someone just getting in a couple minutes late. So someone asked, who did we have the Niners drafting at 2? Lawson picked Baby Bosa. So
yeah.
All right, I am back on the board now with the 5th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wow, Tampa fell off hard.
Didn't they? Wow, man. Like they seemed like a team that was actually trying to make some noise and was like kind of competitive. Jameis was, finding his groove, but then what happened?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is like they started off hot this year with Fitzception.
It's magic, baby.
Fitzception. He tricks teams into giving him big money. And then the wheels came off, and people realized that Ryan Fitzpatrick just isn't as good. And then Jameis took over, and well, we've seen this with Jameis before.
Yeah.
And it was time that Dirk Cutter got the axe, and I think bringing in Bruce Arians is going to be big for them. I don't think that they have to worry about drafting a quarterback like I would have thought if they hadn't brought in Bruce Arians. If there's one guy I trust to fix Jameis, it's Bruce. So they don't need a quarterback. They could use a running back because Ronald Jones barely played for them last year because, he just didn't want to learn a playbook. Always give him your second-round pick, does not want to learn the playbook.
Yeah.
It's a little too early for a running back. If Quinnen was still available, this would easily be him just because, Gerald McCoy is getting older and really expensive too, and you can probably move on from him. But there's just not that defensive tackle with Quinnen off the board that I would trust. However, they lost Quan Alexander for an ass load of money to the Niners, by the way. And with Todd Bowles' defense, they do kind of rely on like that fly around the field middle linebacker. This is Devin White.
Devin White, there you go. Now, I think absolute freak of nature, has all the skills in the world to be an all-pro player, dominate at the next level. But I still think he needs to polish his game. I still think there's areas that he can really improve upon in terms of, we were talking about it before we started here, saying sometimes you get your feet stuck in cement, different things like that. You're slow to the play. You're kind of lost in the traffic. Those can be system for some people. But for others, if you lack that kind of vision, you can't really see through the mess of it all. It's hard to learn that skill and things like that. And I'd like to see that development in his game. But in terms of his potential, guy's gonna be a freak.
Oh yeah, like this is a pretty no-brainer type pick. I think that there are some people really overthinking Devin White and thinking that like he's just not good because he had like a kind of meh year, but he really fixed up a lot of the issues he had going into last year. So
big time. And he's certainly one of my man crushes of the draft. I would not be upset if we were to roll the dice and trade up. Let's say if he slips to that kind of double-digit range, closer to 10, 12, something like that. If we were to maybe give a first and a third or something, or a first and a second, and hop up and take them, I'm okay.
You know who my comp for him is, right?
I think you told me. I forget now.
Jalen Smith.
Oh yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, this is Jalen Smith without the injury concern. So this is a big get at 5 for them
for sure. Anyways, moving on to 6, Big Blue, New York Giants here.
I forgot who had that pick for a second. Yeah, it's the Giants.
Yeah, Big Blue here. Obviously, a weird offseason for them. You know what I mean? They get Gettleman in there, who is an absolute ball slinger. Doesn't care. You said it before. When it comes to cut the nuts off, he doesn't.
When it's nut cutting time, he just cuts the nuts off and doesn't even.
Like his history too. Like when he was with Washington and they didn't, or they rescinded the franchise tag on Josh Norman.
Yeah, when he was with the Panthers. Yeah.
Oh, with the Panthers, right? And then they, obviously trade for OBJ or trade away OBJ. All these things. He's not afraid to pull the trigger on anything and make something happen here. And I also don't think he's like Eli, good guy, see how he does. I think he's ready, honestly, for Eli to get the hell out of there. And if Kyler's already off the board and it's my pick of quarterbacks, Drew Lock is the second guy that I believe will develop into something one of these days. And I'm giving Drew Lock number 6 to the Big Blue Giants.
Drew Lock, eh?
And I like him, honestly. I think for me, because last year Baker was my guy. I was always like, I think Baker's the best quarterback in this draft. And obviously he had the skill set to do it, but there's something about that grit and that fiery attitude for a quarterback to possess that really gets me going. And I think it's probably from Phil, honestly, my boy Phil Rivers, who is just an absolute firecracker of a human being and knows how to lead his team. And is he going to doom you sometimes? Yeah. Is he going to win you some games? Yeah. But in the end of the day, he's a competitor. And he's going to go down swinging no matter what the situation is. And I like that in Drew Lock. I see that in him.
I mean, I can see that. I mean, I comped him to Jay Cutler, who, I mean, I think a lot of people see the accuracy issues with him and immediately go Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
But Drew Lock's 6'4" and 225.
Yeah.
Josh Allen was 6'5" and 250.
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah, I honestly think he needs a year to develop, like any quarterback should. And obviously, you sit behind a journeyman, a guy who's been around the league, won the Super Bowls, had the stats, and Eli. You learn your system and you learn to refine your arm talent because the guy can sling it all over the yard. And I think he's going to be a good player.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've got a second on him, but I have a second on a lot of quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. Also, I said this about Devin. If we trade up and get Devin White, like, okay, I'm willing to pay the price. If we take a quarterback at 28, the only one that I want us to take is Drew Lock.
Yeah. I mean, I thought you were going to go Haskins for like a guy that you can definitely sit for a bit, but I don't hate that.
I think Lock's going to be better than Haskins.
Ooh. We shall see. All right, I'm on the board now. 7th pick, Jacksonville Jaguars. I think really at this point it comes down to two potential picks. One is a wide receiver for Nick Foles.
Mm-hmm.
The other is an offensive tackle.
True.
They don't have a terrible offensive line. Greg Robinson, or no? Which Robinson do they get?
No, they got
the fuck was his name? The offensive tackle, Cam Robinson.
Cam Robinson, yeah.
Too many Robinsons that play offensive tackle that were just big lumbering fucks.
Honestly.
Yeah, Cam Robinson, he's done pretty good, but there's a hole at right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
This could also be DK. I think though that like when you just paid Nick Foles so much money,
stupid money,
insane money, that you've got to make sure that he's protected, and this is not the receiver class to reach on. So I'm going to give them a guy that played right tackle in college, excelled at right tackle, was actually the best offensive lineman on his team, despite not playing left tackle. This is going to be Jawan Taylor.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, he's kind of he was always in the talks of like, oh yeah, he's a good guy, he's a good player, and he could be good. And after the combine, and he kind of displayed his athleticism, and maybe some of the other offensive linemen didn't necessarily display it as well. He's been like the consensus like number one guy now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's well deserved because he has a great skill set. The guy moves fluid for a big man, and I think your Eagles have done a great job of showing the league that right tackle is almost like equally as important as left nowadays. That now defensive coordinators are always saying, okay, you're going to put your best guy at left tackle. Well, I'm going to put my best rusher over your right tackle.
Yeah.
Right. They're just dominating. That's why we saw, guys like Justin Houston, Von Miller, things like that. J.J. Watt getting close to 20 sacks, like unheard of. And now that production has dropped off because there's such a movement around the development of right tackles and the importance of it that I think it's not unheard of to get a right tackle here in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, Jawan Taylor is not my number one tackle. It's still Jonah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Jawan Taylor is going to be the first tackle taken. So, because I still think the NFL is going to overthink Jonah Williams and think that his arms are too short.
Yeah, well, I've heard, people kind of murmuring and talking about maybe even moving him into center. Some people think that he's going to be an all-pro center at the next level, but just a run-of-the-mill tackle.
I compared Jonah to Joe Staley from the Niners. I compared Jawan Taylor to Tyron Smith.
Oof.
Tyron Smith played right tackle in college and became an elite left tackle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's also just built different, man. That guy's a freak of nature.
Yeah, I mean Tyron Smith is a lot smaller, but like same type of like right tackle with elite left tackle type
No,
skills.
what you're saying, yeah.
All right, you're on the board now with the Detroit Lions, who paid an ass load of money to bring in a ton of former Patriots.
Yeah, I mean the Patricia ties, the ties to the Patriots are alive and well, and Detroit also a team has some talent across the board, but just can't put it together. Maybe first year under the new head coach and whatever else, but they find themselves here at a number 8 with a lot of people still left on the board, and I try to think some of the holes that they may have and some of the things that they may want to invest in and do, and I think Patricia being a defensive guy, a defensive mastermind, and
I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, and showing, just I'd rather have a great rotation of guys. I need guys who can always rush the passer. They get Trey Flowers. They want to couple him with a force on the inside of their defensive line there. I'm going Ed Oliver here.
Ooh, that wasn't where I thought you were going.
No, you didn't think I was going Ed?
I thought you were going Rashawn Gary.
No, man. You know me and Ed Oliver, bro. I think before the college season started, where I was like, this guy's the number 1 pick already, and he's just in it for the shits and giggles of it this year. Obviously, some people kind of developed and maybe surpassed him, and he didn't have as good of a season as I thought he would have. But you look at him test, and you look at the way he moves and the skill set that he has.
Oh yeah.
I think if I had to pick one player to be the absolute win player of the draft, I take Ed Oliver, because I think 5 years from now, when everyone's either getting their contract, for that 1 extra year or signing a big contract in the first place, he's going to be the guy that gets the $100 million.
I think the only reason I was thinking Rashawn Gary is because I was thinking the Patriots system, when you have like those guys that play multiple positions, like a Trey Flowers, that's an edge/interior defensive lineman, and you could have a Rashawn Gary with that as well, and you can have those two guys just play out on the end. But yeah, I mean, to have a trio of defensive tackles that's Snacks Harrison, A'Shawn Robinson, and Ed Oliver is pretty fucking scary.
That's all you need, man.
I love that pick. I mean, Ed Oliver's number 5 on my big board. Everyone ahead of him is already gone with Bosa, Quinn, and Josh, and Devin. So
there you go, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very top heavy class. Number 9, the Buffalo Bills, another team kind of like Jacksonville, where they've got their quarterback on offense, but they really don't have much else. They have a really bad offensive line, unlike Jacksonville. Like, Deion Dawkins is okay, but like the rest of that offensive line is kind of meh.
Okay is being generous too.
They put a crap ton of money into some very small wide receivers this year. So again, this could be a DK pick. But I'm going to stay true to my board. This is Jonah Williams.
Yeah, great pick there. And I think Buffalo's actually made some waves in free agency trying to get some of the offensive line help in there. And I believe that they signed Morse, didn't they, from Kansas City?
I believe so.
Center, he's obviously a solid player there. And then they went and did they sign? No, maybe that was Denver. He signed a tackle.
This is the problem. Free agency happens so far before the draft. By the time it comes around,
I need to have like free agency notes, but I think it was either them or Denver that spent a lot of money on a tackle who did not deserve a lot of money. But I mean, whatever. You get a good tackle here in the draft.
Yeah. All right, you are on the clock now with the Denver Broncos, and John Elway's man crush is not available.
No, sure isn't. Denver. Wow. I think
are the 2 easy wins now? Every year coming from Denver now, because it used to be Oakland.
It definitely used to be Oakland, but if we look back at the year previous, our series with Denver was 1-1. We shouldn't have lost the game that we did. We lost on a last-second field goal to them. But then the game in Week 17, it was close the whole game, and they were shutting us down, even though we were trying to actually compete because if Kansas City had lost and some other things, we had a chance to be the number 1 seed. But I think the 2 easy wins are still coming from Oakland because they have Joe Flacco at the helm, and I don't think that's going to be any good there.
Joe Flacco. Denver.
Yeah,
Flacco.
yeah.
You said Oakland. I got very confused. Like, what? They traded him to Oakland now? Like,
No. So I think I'm gonna go for a little bit of a curveball here, and I'm gonna say that they draft Dwayne Haskins.
yeah, I mean, this makes a lot of sense. You can have, I mean, let's face it. At this point in his career, Flacco is a bridge quarterback.
And I don't know if it was a fake quote or whatever it was. I read yesterday that Joe Flacco said, whatever they want to do in the draft, I'm the quarterback of the future. And I was like, no, fuck off.
Joe, get the fuck out of here. You haven't had a good season since Lawson and I were in high school.
And even then, like, it was a pretty pedestrian sort of season. But.
Yeah. He is the world's worst elite quarterback.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm very thankful that they want to bring him in. I mean, I was good with feasting on Case Keenum, but Joe Flacco's whatever.
Dude, if Joe Flacco is elite, you're 6'4".
I wish. I wish.
All 5'11" of you.
Oh no.
All right, man. So I'm on the board now. I have the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a low-key team, I think, that might try to trade up for a quarterback. They brought in Zach Taylor, which is a joke and the punchline. Like, that's a setup and the punchline. Like,
Sure.
They brought in a quarterback's coach that had, like, 1 year of experience as a quarterback's coach. He's never called a play in his life.
Yeah.
He's never been an offensive coordinator at the NFL level. The highest position he had ever held before this was the offensive coordinator position at the University of Cincinnati. And now he's the Bengals head coach. At least it's probably better than having Marvin Lewis as your head coach. But then again, having one of us as the head coach is better than having Marvin Lewis as the head coach.
Yeah, it was a weird situation, man. But I think
fucking Bengals.
Yeah, I think Marv it was time for a new start with whoever it was, and
it was about 4 years too late for a new start.
But I don't know if this guy's going to be the best way to replace Marv Lewis. But in the same time, you just needed not Marv Lewis there. So
exactly,
yeah, this guy just smelled Sean McVay fart for a couple of years, and they're like, "Yep, head coach material."
Hey, like that Instagram post I did not too long, in around that time with me in a Gurley jersey. I can be an offensive quality control coach. I have a connection to the Rams. Like
that's it. It was ridiculous, but
yeah. So I'm looking at this now, and I mean they could trade up to 3 if they really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean Andy Dalton isn't getting it done.
No.
But looking at the draft the way it is right now, if Haskins was there, this is Haskins. If Locke is there, this is Locke. Neither of them are there, and I don't trust Daniel Jones as far as he can throw.
Yeah.
He isn't that far. So I'm looking now, and I mean, I'm kind of surprised that we've only had 2 edge rushers go so far.
Mm-hmm.
And this team just needs athleticism. It's tough because like they've got Carl Lawson, who the last regime was terrified of using. They've got Michael Johnson, who's a fossil at this point. Sam Hubbard's not really that athletic. Why not give them a fuckload of athleticism in one pick? Montez Sweat.
Ooh.
I love Montez Sweat. And I was always very hesitant to move him up the board because I'm like, he's a little stiff. And then I saw him at the combine. I'm like, nope, he's not stiff. Never mind. He was always kind of in that like top 15, top 20 range for me. He's at 7 on my board now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's one big step away from putting it all together. But when you have his kind of skill set, you get the right coaching staff, you put it all together, yeah, you're going to be an all-pro. But if you can't, you're just another one of those guys. I was like, oh, what happened? You ran a 4.41. Yeah, he's also an edge rusher. So,
like, he could be like the next big thing in terms of like a 15 sack a year type guy, or he could be Deion Jordan.
Yeah,
but Deion Jordan didn't have the production that he had. So
correct,
he's got traits and production.
Yeah,
and he did it in the SEC.
Green Bay, new head coach as well. Those Sean McVay links. Have you read the article that came out, like talking about?
Oh, the Ty Dunn one. No, I didn't read the article, but I actually did listen to a podcast with Ty Dunn about that article.
Yeah, it was wild, man. Hearing some of the things and the way that people had opinions on it, and the way that things kind of shaped out and whatever. It was rather eye opening, for sure. But I think again, just like with Cincinnati, someone other than Mike McCarthy is a good move for Green Bay, and I think that their ownership has now kind of laid the law of the land down, has been like, this is how things are happening, and I'm not going to be as complacent as I was before, which is great. I'm looking at guys available still. I'm looking at guys that can come in and make an immediate impact for them. I think if you are LaFleur, you're looking for someone who can immediately step in and help Aaron Rodgers. You want to make sure that the engine of the entire organization has enough gas in order to get the job done. They drafted so many rookie receivers last year. I think they have the potential to develop into something nice. They still have Devontae Adams. They don't have anybody at tight end. I'm going TJ Hawkinson.
Ooh, okay.
I think TJ is a huge sleeper, despite how high people are on him, because people who maybe are not as in the circle of things will see TJ and be like, how is he top 5 player on the big boards? Because the guy does everything. Absolutely everything. And you want that guy who puts his hand in the dirt and is going to drive a motherfucker off the line. You want him to get nitty gritty in between the tackles and do whatever he needs to do, and then still catch the ball, still get the first down, still move the chains, just like a Gronkowski does. And if you can effectively get a guy that steals the edge like that, can get next level like that, and do everything, he's a superstar player.
Did you at any point consider Noah Fant
for this pick?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Again, Noah is a guy who's like too much of a big receiver at the tight end position for me, for them to take here. So the difference for me between TJ and Fant is that TJ, maybe you get a little bit less athleticism. You don't get the top end speed. You may not get like the super dynamic route running or line him up as like a slot receiver and things like that. But it's not that you're also missing that stuff, right? You just maybe get an increased version of a Fant. But with TJ, you get the guy who's going to block. You get the guy who's going to do every single thing on the field, and I don't have to almost plan plays just for Noah Fant. TJ can do it all. I think he's like that kind of Gronkowski mold. Even though he's not as big as Gronk, he has the same sort of mentality about it, whereas Fant's a little kind of delicate, flowery fella. And I think he'll have a similar start to his career as Eric Ebron. I don't know if he'll get double-digit touchdowns eventually, but.
All right. I like that pick. They need a tight end. The Jimmy Graham experiment failed miserably.
Big time. All right, and the running game, so someone who can block is going to be super important for them.
Yeah. I'm on the board right now, 13, Miami Dolphins. They're basically openly admitting that they're tanking for Tua or Fromm or one of the two for next year.
Mm.
So this is not going to be Daniel Jones. Brian Flores coming over from the Patriots. They tried to throw a fuckload of money at Trey Flowers. That didn't work because he went to Detroit for a different. He went to the previous Patriots defensive coordinator, not the new hired defensive coordinator that just got this one. They need a player that can impact the game in multiple ways. Cam Wake is 36, 37 years old. They traded Robert Quinn. They don't have anyone that can rush the passer. And I think that this could obviously be Brian Burns. Like, this could very easily be Brian Burns. But I think that coming from that Patriots, mindset, they want a guy that they can use as like a Swiss Army knife on that defensive line. So the Miami Dolphins are going to go Rashawn Gary.
Nice. Yeah, obviously an absolute steal of a pick here. You just get someone who can come in and change the game right away.
I mean, it doesn't matter whether you put him as an edge rusher, whether you put him as a defensive tackle. Yeah, he's raw. He also got no coaching at Michigan. So,
yeah.
I mean, he's definitely more athlete than player, but he's got the traits.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I agree with that entirely.
Do you have the Atlanta Falcons?
Sure do. Atlanta Falcons on the board. Looking at my players right now. I think part of me honestly wants to go like some sort of receiver. Absolutely give them the world's best rec core to put with Matt Ryan and just air it out on air.
Have Julio plus Ridley plus Sanu plus another wide receiver. Just be madness.
Like, just insane. I think in terms of where they sit as a team, obviously they need some defensive help. And they were another team that's picking a little bit higher in the draft than I think people expected them to, because they just couldn't put it together.
Everyone got hurt.
They had a ton of injuries. They just couldn't win games down the stretch. It's rough to see a team kind of implode like that, whether you're a fan of them or not, especially when it's kind of not out of their hands with injuries and things like that. But even though I look at their defense, I think that they could definitely use some immediate help. They also get Deion Jones back, so I don't think that they need immediate help at the linebacker position. Corners, maybe, safety. I don't think anybody's worth going this high for the safeties. I'm going to give him a luxury pick, and I'm going to go with the guy we're just debating. I'll give him Noah Fant.
I like that pick. I mean, they really haven't had much in terms of tight ends for a while now.
Yeah.
Tony Gonzalez.
Austin Hooper ain't cutting it.
Austin Hooper ain't cutting it. Levine Toilolo's not even on the team anymore.
No.
You just at some point have to kind of, bite the bullet, get another check down option for Matt Ryan, so that
see a team go best player available so high in the draft, because usually, again, teams at this position need some sort of position or another, so they draft for that as opposed to maybe taking that luxury item. But again, I think if he's sitting here and they're sitting there and they're looking at each other being like, you know what, maybe we just high power the offense. You score more points than they do, you win a football game. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, Matt Ryan was an MVP winner not too long ago, got the big money contract, has fell off a little bit in the last couple of years. Noah Fant, again, luxury pick. This is a team that's been rumored to be trying to trade up to 8 to get Ed Oliver, which if that happens, that defense suddenly becomes that much stronger under Dan Quinn. So I like that pick. I have the 15th pick, which is the Washington Redskins. In the one mock draft I've dropped this year, because good God, I hate doing mock drafts. I absolutely hate doing them. This is like the only type of mock draft I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
But I gave them Josh Rosen with this pick.
Oh.
Because I think that this is ultimately where Josh Rosen ends up going.
So you say like they're going to trade this pick at 15 to the Cardinals?
I think if Arizona can't get a 1 for Josh Rosen, they've failed. Like, they have fucked him up that bad if they can't get a first-round pick for a guy that they got at 10 last year. So that's my thought, that if they can't get a first-round pick for him, they have utterly failed. That being said, again, no trades in this scenario. So at 15, I gotta bite the bullet. I gotta draft a quarterback for them. This is not at all who I would pick if this were me. But I mean, sometimes need trumps best player available, especially when that need is a quarterback. I'm giving the Washington Redskins Daniel Jones.
All right, man. And I think Jones is kind of sitting in the shadows with some of the other names that they talked about.
I have a third-round grade on Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think, again, he's kind of creeping in the shadows with the talk of Kyler and the talk of Dwayne and Locke for a little bit and things like that, and he's kind of fallen off with also the Rosen kind of swirling around. But again, I think the smartest thing to do is you take a quarterback, you sit him for a year, let him learn the system, let him figure things out a little bit, get a little bit more confidence. You toss him in there, and I think you could take a player who's not ready at all and make him that player who's ready to be a contributor and lead the offense and things like that. I think that 1 year is absolutely huge.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of drops from his receivers last year, which I think went into a lot of it. But I just don't see it. I just don't see it, and I know he's probably going to go high. Well, he's obviously going to go round 1, I think. But I just can't get behind it myself. But again, need trumps all. We are at the midway point, and we've still only had 3 edge rushers, which is kind of where this draft has found its strength. But we're also coming up on a stretch of teams that need offensive linemen. Starting with you at 16 with the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah,
we need both of those positions I just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's it comes to an interesting point when you're sitting midway in the draft to consider, do we reach for one of these interior linemen? I think 16 is a reach for an interior lineman who's not named Quentin Nelson. Sorry. Even though there are some good guys in here, like Garrett Bradbury's a really solid player. Dalton Risner could move inside from that kind of tackle position, things like that. But I think in terms of who's left on the board and that kind of Carolina identity with some of the players that they've lost, I'm going to give him one of the edge rushers here, and Brian Burns is the next guy that I got up here to kind of come back in, get some pressure on the quarterback, and make that defense a little bit scary again.
I was always kind of a little low on Burns for a little bit, just based off of the fact that he was really small, and I doubted that he was going to be in around like 240 even. Like, he was listed by Florida State at like 225, 230. So I really was worried about, especially when he's like 6'6", too. Like, so he's long and lean, and I just started thinking like Deion Jordan. But when he came into the combine at 6'5" and 249 and kept that weight and showed his athleticism, that he could still be that athletic at that size. It really checked all the boxes, because when you watch the tape, his best games came against his best opponents.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you have a guy that has all the traits and showed up when the games matter the most. I like it. He's actually, where is he on my board? He's my number 9 player.
Oh wow.
And he was actually the highest rated players on my board still remaining. So, I mean, I like the pick, obviously. We're at the halfway point, so I figured this is a good time to kind of stop for a second, just kind of review the picks as they've gone so far. Also, apologies to anyone watching. I've been going through some technical difficulties. It normally bounces back and forth as to who gets shown based on who's talking or who's louder. It was getting stuck on like me at times while you were talking. So I've fixed that issue now, so we shouldn't have that problem. I think I accidentally clicked on something. So I was trying to, for a bit, manually, like whenever you were talking, having to click on you. But I appeared like I've fixed that problem. So yeah, at 1 was Kyler Murray, at 2 was Nick Bosa, 3 was Josh Allen, 4 was Quinnen Williams, 5 was Devin White. So the top 5 for us really kind of sticking true to what we've been hearing a lot.
Yeah.
6, Lawson threw a monkey wrench in the thing by going Drew Lock. 7, Jawan Taylor. 8, Ed Oliver. 9, Jonah Williams. 10 to Denver, Dwayne Haskins. 11, Montez Sweat to the Bengals. 12, TJ Hawkinson. 13, Rashawn Gary. 14, Noah Fant. 15, Daniel Jones. And 16, Brian Burns.
Yeah.
So I am on the board now with my least favorite team, the New York Giants. Fuck those Giants. I'm glad that they have a general manager that likes to trade away their best players. I'm glad they have a general manager that decided that he didn't want to pay Landon Collins like $11 million a season and would rather let him go to Washington. I'm glad that they traded Odell Beckham for Jabril Peppers.
Tough.
Bad teams stay bad. I feel bad for Saquon Barkley for having to be stuck in that trash heap.
Yeah.
But I also don't feel bad because he's a Giant.
Maybe Gettleman pulls a Gettleman and trades him next season.
Well, here's the funny thing. So, thankfully you gave them Drew Lock, because Lord knows there is nothing there for them at quarterback if they pass on Lock at 6 or
a quarterback 6. Yeah.
I mean, if they pass on that, you know damn well that Cincinnati's taking quarterback as well at that point.
Oh yeah.
So here we are, pick 17. This team has a lot of needs. Like, I could see them going offensive tackle because Nate Solder is not good.
No.
I could see them going wide receiver because who knows? Maybe after you trade Odell Beckham, you might need a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Just a hunch I've got. I would say linebacker, especially considering Devin Bush is still there, and it is Dave Gettleman. He really values linebackers.
Yeah.
I mean, he's taken Luke Kuechly. He's taken Shaq Thompson early. I have no idea what this team's thinking. So I have to go with Gettleman's history and the fact that the best player available is a linebacker. I'm giving them Devin Bush.
Yeah, I mean, if we come draft day and Devin Bush is still around at 17,
he's gone.
It's going to be a weird sort of turn of events, but hey, weirder things have happened. I mean, you look at Derwin James falling to the mid-first round last year, and by the good grace of God, we just happen to be sitting there being like, are you guys sure that you want us to take Derwin James this year?
Considering Tampa needed a safety and passed on him twice.
There were so many teams, man, that could have used a safety. Well, you even look at Miami. Miami needed that kind of defensive back sort of player, and they took Minka instead. And I was like, okay.
Well, I mean, Minka shouldn't have been there for the Dolphins to take, but
yeah, and the best thing about it is that we didn't have to trade up to do it, man. And
that's the most nuts thing about that is they didn't even.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, man. But I don't envision that sort of gift to drop to us to 28. But hey, I'm crossing my fingers. You never know. Devin Bush, great player, good pick there.
I've given him to the Chargers before in mock drafts.
I've seen him to the Chargers in a couple mocks before, but I think as we get closer to the draft, people realize, okay, no, like he's not going to be around at 28.
Yeah.
And moving on to Minnesota, pick 18 here. This one is a no-brainer at this point. You pay Kirk Cousins a ton of money, but you can't protect him. You can't even stop a nosebleed to like a rush. You can't run the football. Can't do anything because your offensive line is probably one of the worst units in the NFL. I'm going to go with the best remaining guy, in my opinion, at this point, Gary Bradbury.
Garrett Pratt? Ooh. I like that. I was thinking you were going to go with Cody Ford because
Cody Ford is a solid player, obviously, but I think that Oklahoma system for some of the big hogs up front can make them seem a little bit more glamorous than they are. I mean, you look at a guy like Orlando Brown, who was a star tackle in their system and things like that. I think that their offensive line flaws get bailed out a lot of times by how well their quarterbacks can move the pocket and their athleticism, but also because of their play designs a lot of the time. So while Cody Ford, I think, is going to be a solid player, I really like Bradbury.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking a look at the Vikings depth chart now. I mean, they've got Pat Elflein at center, but he played guard in college mostly. And you can move him to left guard. You slide Bradbury in at center. You've made two positions better with one pick.
Yep.
I like that. It was a bit of a shocker, but I can get behind that. So we have a Titans fan in the chat. Rob, I'm picking for your Titans. I think the first time you and I did this second year we did this was the year I got both of their picks right. And at 5 was Corey Davis. There's a Corey Davis type wide receiver out there where I don't know if they're going to go wide receiver this early. They definitely could.
They could, yeah.
They definitely could. But I'm looking at this team, and I mean, they have Harold Landry, who, I mean, you know how much I loved Harold Landry last year.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that they got him in round 2 was something else. But I'm looking at them this year, and like there's definite holes. This is actually one of the weaker teams that almost made the playoffs last year. I think it was just because they had to share a division with a Jacksonville team that was just a dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm.
They're set on the offensive line. I think they have one of the best offensive lines in the league now, with bringing in Roger Saffold as well.
Absolutely.
Tight end, if there was one there, especially if it was Hawkinson, this would be a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the team, and there's definitely some room for improvement, but like this is kind of a weird team to pick for in the grand scheme of things. I'm gonna go with an off the beaten path type of pick. This is just a team with a position that I think that for far too long they've tried to make do with subpar talent at. I'm going to give them Josh Jacobs.
Ooh.
I have never been high on Derrick Henry. And, I mean, the year he came out, he was like my running back 8 or 9. This is a guy that shows up for 2 or 3 games every year and will have like 150 yards. But for the other 13 games, he may have 500.
Yeah, Derrick Henry is probably the player that I hate the most now in the NFL. He was the one who ended my fantasy run this last year.
Oh, God.
I was in a fantasy pool with the overall winnings of $2,000. I had constructed an amazing team. I was
I won the scrap heaps, man. I had nothing. Yeah. I still won.
I was the consensus #1. Everyone thought I was going to roll through. And the week that was round 1 of the playoffs, I happened to play a guy who had Amari Cooper, who went off for 52 points, and Derrick Henry, who went off for 54 points or something like that. And it was the Thursday night game that Derrick Henry played the Jaguars, and he went for 200-something yards and 4 touchdowns. And I'm watching the game like, you got to be fucking kidding me. This guy had more points in one game than he had the entire season, and it just happens to be when I was in the playoffs.
Yeah, I faced the guy that had Derrick Henry that week, but he sat him on the bench, so it didn't affect me.
And that was the thing with this guy, was that he had Kareem Hunt, I think, who was no longer available, so he just had to, by necessity, because the trade deadline had passed, put in Derrick Henry, and
I hate when that happens, man.
I've had that winning the league too, because the next week
he went out for like 200 again.
Yeah, he had a huge game, and I was like, man, fuck you.
Like I said, this guy is relevant for like 3 games down the stretch every year, and is a non-factor in the other 13. So
yeah, hate Derrick Henry, like the Josh Jacobs pick. Get Derrick Henry out of the league.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm good. Number 20, moving along here, we're gonna go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. What a fucking kibosh of a place that is right now, with their kind of developments and the way that their players are going after each other and in the media, and they lost.
I don't know if you do this. There's a YouTuber. His name is Urinating Tree. He does like a comedic recap of the NFL every week, and he had a segment that started off as like, with all of the Le'Veon and Antonio Brown drama and Big Ben throwing everyone under the bus, called Days of Our Steelers. He had to turn that into a weekly segment because he couldn't fit it into his normal stuff. He had fresh material every single week too.
Well, that's what it seemed like. Every single week, something else was happening and something else was going on. And it's so weird because I've always seen the Steelers as like a no-nonsense sort of thing with the Rooney family and, Bill Cowher. And then you get Mike Tomlin in there, and like just their kind of leadership and their figures and things like that. Like I've never seen them as keeping up with the Kardashians sort of thing, but fuck sakes. Anyways, let's hope that kind of wave is behind them and whatever. But I think right here you look at who's available at number 20 and where they need help the most, and they've had a terrible secondary for a lot of time. They went and picked Terrell Edmonds last year, which I was like,
bruh. I honestly think that they forgot which Edmonds it was.
Yeah, like it was not a great pick. I think they could have done a lot more damage at their pick last year. But this year, I'm going to give him a guy who I think is always going to be a contributor. I don't think he's going to be a missed project. But I also don't think he's going to be like that super #1 guy in the league for a long time, I'm going to go Greedy Williams. I think
Yeah.
he's going to be a consistent guy who has a very high floor. I'm not going to say a low ceiling, but I don't think it's the top of the sky for the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of soured a bit on Greedy as the year went on. He's always been in that like top half of the first round for me. Like right now, he checks in at 14 on my board. So I mean, this is good value. I've always had him as like he's been my corner one the entire process. He's also young too. He's a redshirt sophomore.
I think with the corner class, if you're a team that needs a cornerback, it's all going to come down to preference for you, because I think it's all the teams in the back half of the draft, and then you're going to have every corner left still on the board. So I think between Greedy, DeAndre Baker, Taylor Rapp, things like that, and Byron Murphy. Taylor Rapp's more of a safety guy, but I think that's all just kind of preference. Like, what do you like in a cornerback? If one of the guys is going to have it, that's going to be your guy.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that you can get Greedy at 20 says just how much like the corner class does not really fit into the first round when you think about it.
No, it's weird. Yeah, it's weird because they're all good players, but I just think some of the needs of the top half and some of the players that we have up there just forces the guys down to the bottom half of the round.
Yeah. All right, so we've now reached playoff territory, and the Seattle Seahawks are on the board. And the Seattle Seahawks are on the board at a time in which somehow there are offensive linemen still available. And if there's one thing Russell Wilson has never really had, it's a good offensive line in front of him. Under normal circumstances, this could very easily be DeAndre Baker, Trayvon Mullen, Greedy if he were still there. But I mean, like Dwayne Brown, he's not what he once was. Mike Iupati, he's not what he once was. Jermaine Ifedi is laughably bad. DJ Fluker is not what he was when he was playing for the Chargers, and even that was
never a solid player. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this is definitely offensive tackle territory. This is a team that wants to be a smash mouth, run the ball type of team that also has Russell Wilson making plays with his arm. They don't need a wide receiver at this point. They need someone that can help block, a power, a power run blocker as well that can play and help out on the outside. Cody Ford has a lot of experience protecting smaller sized quarterbacks, so I'm going to give him 21 to the Seattle Seahawks. This is run the card up to the to the desk if this happens next Thursday.
Oh, big time! I mean, I guess not a stereotype, but with interior offensive linemen, they seem to be more plug and play mentality. It's like, well, you could get a guy in the 4th round and stuff him in there and be just fine. Which, okay, yeah, we've seen some success with that. But when you have that kind of next tier level of guys like a Cody Ford, Nelson from last year, different things like that, they're such game changers on the inside of the offensive line that you just can't pass up on them.
You know what? Like, I see it this way, and of course, like I've looked at this offensive line class so many different times, and I think that offensive tackle is really one of the more slept-on positions in this year's class.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have a top guy like Jonah Williams that I've compared to Joe Staley, or Jawan Taylor who I've compared to Tyron Smith, Cody Ford I have listed as a guard, but he can play right tackle.
Mm-hmm. And
my comp for Cody Ford has always been Zach Martin.
True. Yeah.
Which, yes, I broke color barriers on that one.
Nice.
I compared a black player to a white guy in the NFL. That doesn't happen all that often.
Only in the trenches, man.
Only in the trenches, really. Or unless he's like a big, quarterback with a little bit of mobility. And if he happens to be black, he's probably, Big Ben. Or if it's a white guy, they'll compare him to Cam Newton.
Mm-hmm.
At 22, taking a look at the draft order, it's the Baltimore Ravens, who went on a little bit of a surprise run, given that, Lamar Jackson was their starting quarterback. About midway through the season, everyone thought that John Harbaugh was going to get fired or at least mutually part ways with the organization. They somehow made it into the playoffs despite not needing to throw the ball. You have an inaccurate quarterback. Is this where we finally see our first wide receiver come off the board?
I think so, man. I mean, I'm looking at who's kind of available, and you look at some of the players that they lost, and they did lose a good amount of players on that defense that people aren't really talking about because you get Earl Thomas and in free agency. Like, okay, all well and good, but you again some pieces there. But they've signed Patrick Owasu, who's I think a really good player. Kept some of your defensive linemen in there, so I'm going to leave the defense alone, even though there's still some great players on the defensive side here. You look at who they have on offense. They have a running back, a quarterback. They have a wide receiver at quarterback, and they don't have any receivers. So it's a very interesting sort of mix. I think if Josh Jacobs still here come draft day, that would be an interesting thing for them to look at in terms of trying to upgrade that sort of zone scheme and getting a real contributor in there. But in terms of out wide, I don't even think I know any other wide receivers right now because Michael Crabtree's not there anymore.
Willie Snead is really the only one I can recognize.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and let's give him A.J. Brown, who I think is the best receiver in this class. Just because of he has the mix of the size, the speed. I think he's a great route runner, and he could play out wide or in the slot, which gives him great versatility to show different fronts, different sort of schemes and things like that to really keep the skies of what they're doing, which I think is what they're going to play off for a long time to come.
I like it. Yeah, AJ Brown is not my number one wide receiver. He's my number two, but he's basically 1A because whereas my wide receiver one, who I won't say who it is 16th on my board. AJ Brown is 17th on my board. I've compared him to Michael Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
I think he brings a lot of the same. I mean, Michael Thomas is around the same height as him, bit of a heavier, wide receiver, an elite route runner that can work on on the outside or in the slot. I think that's really the slot, especially, is AJ Brown's wheelhouse. And when you have a quarterback that doesn't have a strong arm like Lamar Jackson, having an elite pass catcher, pass receiver, sorry, like AJ Brown, who catches everything and works mostly from the slot, it doesn't test Lamar Jackson's arm as much as he would need to if it were, let's say, DK Metcalf.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So I really like that pick. At 23 is the Houston Texans. I'm not sure if the Texans have just always hated offensive tackles, but it seems like whenever they get a guy that's supposed to be the franchise leader, they just feel like the need to ruin him by allowing him to get sacked 50, 60, 70 times a season. It happened with Derek Carr back when they were an expansion team, when he just got pummeled until he was no longer a thing. And now with Deshaun Watson, I mean, I'm pulling up their depth chart now at offensive tackle, and I mean, you tell me if you would feel comfortable if you were under center and you were Deshaun Watson, and on your protecting your blind side is Julian Davenport, a 4th round pick from 2017 out of Bucknell, and protecting your front side is Chantrell Henderson.
Not great.
Not great, Bob. Not great.
Not great.
So this is a team that desperately needs offensive line help, and somehow our board has fell in a way that there's actually offensive line help there. I'm not huge on Andre Dillard just because I think he's a little soft. I don't know how strong he is upper body wise, but he's an elite, pass protector, having taken who knows how many pass reps over his 4 years at Washington State. I think that in this type of offense, they're just going to air it out and let Deshaun Watson be Deshaun Watson. So he needs someone to protect his blind side, and it's Andre Dillard.
There you go, man. Yeah, I think Dillard's the best pass protecting guy in this draft, even though he might be a little soft because when he was a part in the Fighting Leeches there at Washington State, I mean, I think they've run the ball maybe like a handful of times during his 3-4 years there. So he's had plenty of reps and experience in protecting a passer, even though different sort of passer, I suppose, than Watson, who scrambles around a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you put him in there as a pass protecting left tackle, and you're having a good time. That's a good pick.
All right, you are on the board now once again with the Raiders. Did you know pass rushers are hard to find?
Pass rushers are hard to find. Yeah, John Gruden seems to think that they grow on trees or in the 4th round of the draft.
Or I mean, he kept talking about how hard pass rushers are to find when he had the best in the league and he traded them.
Sure did, right? But now, they puts them in that position where they have 3 first-round picks. So did it work out? We'll see. We'll see what the Raiders can do with these 3 picks. I don't necessarily trust John Gruden.
If you know what to do with them, and I don't trust that he knows what to do with them. That's why Mayock's there.
That's what I'm saying. I don't trust John Gruden, but I trust my boy Mike Mayock. And I think he's going to do a good job of reloading this team. Like I said, at pick 4, he did a good job through free agency, kind of stacking up this team. And here, sitting at 24, there's still obviously pass rushers available. I gave him Quinnen at the top of the draft there to add a little bit of presence on the inside. I think they go here, and they really try to load up and stretch the field with a type of player who every team seems to be wanting to get their hands on nowadays. And I'm going to give them Marquise Hollywood Brown.
Ooh.
Because ever since Tyreek Hill comes in the league as a tremendous speed, I'm not comparing their speed, but when you get a player like that who can just ignite the field on any given play, it puts the defense in a challenging situation. And I think you get, obviously, Antonio Brown in. You get Hollywood Brown to fill in the shoes there. You get Tyrell Williams as well. You have a mean wide receiver core that they haven't had in a long time to help out Carr under center, and you let him sling it all over the yard.
And what better way to keep Mr. Big Chest happy than by bringing in his cousin?
That's what I'm saying. Hopefully he keeps him in check and he doesn't, no family drama sparks up. But, I mean, you get a guy who has Hollywood kind of speed, tough.
That wasn't where I thought you were going to go with that pick. When you said the type of player that everyone's trying to get, I'm thinking he's going to go DK Metcalf.
Oh, yeah. Well, they get the big body guy with Tyrell Williams on the other side, but there's something about that electric speedster down the field who seem to always have the big yards down the field. It's not necessarily always those big dogs,
Yeah, I like it. Now we're up on the league's best team. Just no one knows it. The guys that, I was beating my chest about last year, the entire season, that it was going to come back. It's only going to be a matter of time. They backdoored their way into the playoffs so hard. It's my favorite team. The Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah,
I was totally team. Keep Wentz, trade Foles, but I mean that team played better under Foles. Wentz is always hurt. I'm not saying. I think that come maybe round 3 or so, if Tyree Jackson is still there, get Tyree Jackson, or get even a Ryan Finley. I'm not really big on Ryan Finley, but you could bring him in if he's still there in round 3 or 4, and I wouldn't have an issue with it.
Yeah, get an insurance policy there.
Definitely, because I mean, right now there's just not a lot there. This is a team that, again, I could definitely see offensive tackle being in need. Jason Peters is held together by duct tape at this point. Lane Johnson loves to get suspended, and Halafuli Vaitai is garbage as a swing tackle. So whenever we have to rely on him for extended periods of time, it's never a pretty result. But the interior is pretty good, and that defense is still very, very strong. I think losing Jordan Hicks is a big loss, especially considering we now have to start Camus, Grugier Hill, and LJ Fort, and I know, even though you are a linebacking connoisseur, you have no idea who those two guys are. This is too early for Mac Wilson, though. But I'm looking at this team, and I'm seeing that Rodney McLeod is getting older. Malcolm Jenkins is getting older. I'm okay with the corners we have. I'm not totally sold on Jalen Mills. Sidney Jones, I'm on the upside of. Ronald Darby is kind of a 1-year, prove it deal. Rasul Douglas is someone in the making, and we had a decent year last year from our 4th round guy in Avonte Maddox. I'm going to go safety, but I'm not going to go with the consensus number 1 safety that a lot of people have. I'm going to go with my number 1 safety, Jonathan Abram.
Nice. Yeah. I think Abram is a well-rounded guy who can kind of fit into that new age kind of safety role that we've been seeing people do with I want you in the box, I want you to cover tight ends, get out on the slot, over the top. I think he can have a little bit of an impact everywhere. I think he's a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, I like the moves that Philly made this year. I think, again, if Josh Jacobs were there, can you imagine pairing Josh Jacobs with Jordan Howard?
I think that was a huge steal from the Bears there.
Oh, yeah, we swindled so hard.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And, I mean, bringing back Deshaun Jackson for virtually nothing is always a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, we even brought in Braxton Miller. I didn't even know that till just now.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good like, punt returner.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah, good moves all around. I mean, I trust the GM, man.
Yeah, I think one area that you could also see them go is looking at the interior defensive line. We let go of Timmy Jernigan. So we basically have Fletcher Cox and Malik Jackson, and that's it. But we also we can throw in Vinny Curry and have him play on the interior, or we can just wait till our next pick. We have 2 second rounders, and we can use one of them on an interior defensive line because this is a very deep class where there's Christian Wilkins, Jerry Tillery, Draymond Jones. I think if it's not in the secondary, the one guy I could see them taking in the first round on the interior would be Jeffrey Simmons. I just went same college, different player.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, people are sleeping on Mississippi State too. They may end up as the team that has the most first-round picks this year, other than Clemson. I don't think it's going to be Alabama. It's either going to be Mississippi State or Clemson for most players picked in the first round, which would be good for that program to see them kind of put out a
incredibly deep
draft like that. Yeah.
And they have more guys next year. They have more guys next year.
I'm telling you, they're on the up, man. They're on the up. But 26, I think I have the Indianapolis Colts, if I'm not mistaken here, who put a miracle of a season together. Holy cow. You say they start 0-4 or 0-3? 0-3. And then they just go on an absolute run, an absolute tear, and they start making some noise. And, they go into the playoffs and even win a game, didn't they? They won a game and then they lost.
They did. They beat the Texans. I picked the Texans in that one and looked like an idiot.
Yeah, I remember watching that game. But just you look at their roster too, and they don't have any players. And you got to think, Chris Ballard there is doing such a good job that he said, "We're going to trust what we have, and we're going to build the culture before I go on and spend."
They had the most money to spend in free agency.
Ridiculous, yeah. They're a team that's set up that you could look in a couple of years and be like, oh, how did we let this sort of happen with the Indianapolis Colts here? Anyway, good for them. They're doing it the right way, and I have the utmost respect for the way that they're doing it there. Anyways, they find themselves at 26 here. They could probably draft any position and be happy with it. I look at their receivers, and other than Ty, there's nobody there. So they could definitely go one of the receivers available here, maybe N'Keal Harry, DK Metcalf, something like that. But then I also look at some of the other players, and we mentioned interior defensive linemen. And I think seeing what Andrew Luck was able to do with a bunch of nobodies, maybe you're okay waiting off on a premium pick here because he's probably going to do it again because he's just a freak. He's an absolute amazing player. But you also see on your defense, you have a young player in Darius Leonard, who was Defensive Rookie of the Year. Darius Leonard should have been my guy, Derwin James, but maybe that's a little bit biased. But we all know that you want to keep your linebackers clean, and the best way to do that is to pick up some big uglies up front. And I think a guy in this draft who can make an immediate impact in the run game is Dexter Lawrence, and I'm going to give them big here, over some of the other guys who are still available there because I think Dex is the best plug. You put him in there, and he's going to keep those centers and guards locked down all game, and Darius is going to run all over the place. Christian Wilkins is an amazing player who has a little bit more versatility and things like that, but I think if you're really trying to keep Darius as free as possible, you go and you get Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, there's nothing better for a young linebacker that likes to run around the field than to have a big 350-pound guy eating up 3 blocks.
It's it's playing linebacker is not fun when you always have linemen hitting you in the face, and it's a lot of fun when you can run free as a bird.
Yeah. I like that pick. I think that if they were gonna go with Dexter, though, I mean, they also have 34.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that if they were gonna go defensive tackle in round 1, it's probably Jeffrey Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't mind that pick. I don't mind that pick at all. So now I have the Oakland Raiders, and wow, this is the Amari Cooper trade, and I'm still a little surprised that Dallas did so well and actually won a playoff game. Good for you, Dallas. You won a playoff game for the first time in like 15 years.
Yeah.
However, it cost you another first-round pick to do so. I'm looking at this team. They've brought in LaMarcus Joyner, but man, they've brought in some dudes. Like they brought in Vontez Burfict, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. They brought in Brandon Marshall from the Broncos. You didn't give them a pass rusher, and I mean they're up in a couple of picks again. Anyways, they're up again at 35, which maybe one of those corners is still there. I mean Byron Murphy still has not come off the board, which is a little surprising. But I mean, edge rushers are hard to find. Edge rushers are really hard to find. This is a guy that over the course of the year has really lost some of that luster that he had coming into the year. But I mean, you can't beat 3 years of production. So I think that in this case, I think you have the something's going on. I can hear me on your screen.
Well, I didn't click anything, so.
So I think that at this point, you take a guy 3 years of production on the best defensive line in all of college football, right after his teammate. This is Cleveland Farrell.
Yeah, saw that one coming. Yeah, he's a little too good to be going this late in the round, but
it's stiffness, man. He's not a great athlete, but
yeah, product of the draft class. And one could argue it's like, well, is he really that good, or is it just that he had 4 first-rounders that he was playing with, kind of messing up the offensive linemen? I think he's just that good of a player, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So now the team I was rooting the heaviest for outside of my own team, obviously, last year, that's your team, the LA Chargers, and they're weird, like, we don't have any true linebackers. We'll just throw a shitload of safeties at you.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely brilliant of Gus Bradley to realize the strength of our team was playing 7 defensive backs, 8 defensive backs sometimes, and just letting them take care of business. Obviously, didn't necessarily go as planned there towards the end of the season, but new season is upon us. We're in a great position and great shape to reload. I think we did a good job for agency, not breaking the bank on anybody and kind of getting some solid contributors for bargain bucks. Best contract we gave out that nobody was talking about was Denzel Perriman, 2 years, $10 million.
Yeah, that's a steal. He's a good player.
He's had a history of injuries, but when he's played, he's been a great contributor to our defense. I go here. Forecasting pick number 28 is hard because there's so many things that can happen in front of you at this point in the draft. But I think I look at our team. We need interior defensive lineman help. We need offensive line help. And then maybe corner third is probably the area that I would go to. I think we're an absolute best player available team, and that's going to be the same here. Whoever's left highest on our board is the person that we're going to take and try to round out our needs later on in the draft. I'm looking right here. We talked about him a couple times before. I think interior defensive lineman is a position that we need the most. Christian Wilkins still on the board here, and he could be a day one contributor for us in a rotation. But the guy who has possibly one of the highest ceilings of the draft that nobody's talking about due to an injury is Jeff Simmons, and I'm taking him right here with my boys because I think even though he's not going to be ready for week 1 and maybe he comes back week 5, week 6, something like that.
Good when it counts.
He's gonna come in and be an immediate difference maker, and we already have good players on the defensive line there. and he'll just be a set of fresh legs to get in there and add to the rotation.
If you want to, I mean, Jeff Simmons, he's 28th on my board, so this is perfect timing for him. But if he weren't injured, he's long gone by then.
Yeah, he's a top 10 guy who unfortunately just got a bit by injury in the process, and we see that happen to guys every single year. I mean, your guy Sidney Jones 2 years ago now, I guess, torn Achilles, but it's unfortunate, but it happens, and sometimes they end up at a position like this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's not making it out of round one.
No, there's no chance.
No
chance, especially because of when he did it and his kind of recovery now. Again, I hear that he could be ready as early as week 4.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a great pick. The only thing I was thinking, I'm looking at the wide receiver depth chart, and I mean, there is Keenan Allen and Mike Williams is there as well, but I mean, you don't really have a lot else. I mean, Mike Williams really hasn't done a whole lot, and like Travis Benjamin is like your other wide receiver. Like there's not a lot.
I wouldn't be shocked if we go wide receiver depending on who's available. I honestly think it'll be a true best player available. Like we'd go wide receiver, corner, safety, even though we'd have DJ from last year and re-signed Adrian Phillips. We'd go linebacker. We'd go anywhere. If that player is the best player we still have and they can contribute, we're going to take them.
Yeah. I'm on the board with the Kansas City Chiefs, who almost made the Super Bowl despite not having a defense that could cover either of us. Sure. It's almost like putting up 50 points a game masks any defensive deficiencies you might have. I think that edge rusher is a need, but I mean, we've taken all of them. They're all gone. This is too early for Chase Winovich. Ja'Kai Polite is, I believe, still running his 40, or questioning why people are questioning what he did on certain plays.
Yeah.
Or possibly just eating some Hot Pockets. Like,
what
a weird draft process it's been for him. He fell way out of the first round. He almost fell out of the second round for me. Yeah. But I think that from day one, their biggest position of need has been corner. They need someone on the outside, which narrows it down to really 3 guys. DeAndre Baker has not had the best draft process either. There's been some questions about his maturity and his overall long speed and everything like that. So I think that takes him out of the running. Trayvon Mullen had a very good national championship game, but I'm very surprised that this guy is still here at pick 29. So the Kansas City Chiefs are getting Byron Murphy.
Yeah, right on. Good pick there. I mean, Washington corners and secondary guys.
It's underrated in terms of being a corner factory, man.
They bring it different, and this guy Murphy's really technically sound. He has great instincts from what I've seen, and he may not be the most athletic guy in the world, but he's a guy who's going to come in and he's going to contribute.
You are up on the board now with the 30th pick, which is Green Bay by way of the New Orleans Saints.
Yep. So
you gave them at 12, T.J. Hawkinson. So where are we going at 30?
You take care of one of your biggest mouths on the offense to feed. You give Aaron Rodgers a good new guy to play with and try to bolster your run game a little bit at the same time with his physicality at the point of attack there. Now you shift gears and you look towards your defense, right? How can we get better? Because Green Bay has not had a great defense in a long time. I think that they have pieces to be sufficient enough if their offense is firing on all cylinders to put together a good season. But obviously they lose some pieces in the back end, and I'm looking at another UW guy right here, and Taylor Rapp, safety, who I think is a very intelligent player who can be so versatile all over the field for any team that he goes to that he's hard to pass up on at the end of the first round.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a team that they traded Demarius Randall in order to get a backup quarterback last year, which made them look really dumb. Because great, you have Deshaun Kaiser, and Demarius Randall was one of the best free safeties in in the league last year. They brought in Adrian Amos from Chicago on a really nice contract, but I mean, they could really use. I think that even though they drafted Josh Jones in the second round in 2017, you can really upgrade on that by bringing in a Taylor Rapp and just kind of giving them that same, like, sometimes we're going to drop you back into coverage, and a lot of times we're just going to leave you in the box, and we're going to have you do what you do best. I think a lot of people are kind of concerned after Taylor Rapp ran like a 4.75 40 at his pro day. But smart GMs are going to realize that that doesn't really mean anything in the long term. Watch the tape. 3 years of him just being a monster. This guy deserves to go to first round, and in all likelihood will.
Yep.
I'm on the clock next with the LA Rams, who, man, they got shut down on the Super Bowl. And that was a really boring Super Bowl to watch, man.
I liked it because I'm just a defensive guy, so I like seeing the game. But yeah, I agree.
It was a little uninteresting, to say the least. Now, the Rams, I mean, they've loaded up through means other than the draft. They brought in Ndamukong Suh. He's not there anymore, but I mean, they've brought in guys. Dante Fowler they were able to bring back. They're able to make do with really mediocre linebacker play when you think about it. They've got Corey Littleton, who played very well last year despite me having no idea who he was.
Yeah.
That secondary, they brought in Eric Weddle. They still have Keith Talib. They still have Marcus Peters, even though Marcus Peters had a horrendous season last year. The Kansas City won that trade. But I mean, like they've made do with like pretty pedestrian defense for a while. But they did lose a pretty big piece in that secondary. In who was this? In LaMarcus Joyner, who had a pretty down year. I'm looking, and I think that this is probably where his market begins. Is right here at 31. It's not Deontay Thompson because Deontay Thompson weighs about 140 pounds, and also played well for like the first 3 games of the year and completely disappeared after that. It's a safety who, coming into the season, I was very low on because he did not know how to tackle, and now he's probably behind Rapp and Abram, probably the 3rd best tackler in this class. I'm going to go with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Ooh, good pick. Yeah, I'm pretty high on this guy, actually. I think when it's all said and done, he might be wearing those brand new powder blue, beautiful blues for us, because I wouldn't be surprised if we have him very high on our board to kind of fit into Gus Bradley's scheme there.
Yeah, I mean, I was like stupidly low on him coming into this year because I watched him over the summer and just play after play after play, he's getting just run over by every running back he attempted to tackle. And like sometimes to the point where it's like, man, just don't get up. Just don't get up. Just stay down, become one with the turf. And this year he really turned it around. He was already pretty good in coverage, but he just couldn't tackle. This year he had a chip on his shoulder to prove that he really could, and he hits hard too.
Yeah,
he really fixed everything wrong with his game this year.
Yeah, I respect his game for sure, and we talked about UW being that kind of secondary factory, and Florida certainly produced some guys in the last little bit here too.
All right, now everyone's least favorite team, the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many Patriot fans out here on the East Coast in Halifax that I see their apparel and their hats and everything so often, and every time I'm just like giving the death stare at all the people wearing their shit because of how our season ended last year, unfortunately. But I have the utmost respect for an organization that put together 6 Super Bowl wins in the last 20 years and fucking whatever the stats are, 8 appearances in the last fuck it. Anyways,
a lot of appearances in the last several years.
Sick of it, bro. Anyways, last pick of the first round. Always an interesting place to pick, and knowing the Patriots, they'll probably trade out of this and stack it up. But
they already have 12 picks.
They have 12 picks, and they have 5 in the top 101, which is just ridiculous that they have that kind of draft capital and just won the Super Bowl. So I don't know why the league keeps allowing the Patriots to be the best team in the league every single year. I mean, I think everyone's got to bond together. Big shout out to the AFC West here, and just focus on destroying the Patriots. Like, it can't be 6 free wins a year. But that's a whole other story there. Anyways, pick number 32. I think I look at the Patriots roster, and they're going to find some cleaning guy from City, and then find a paper boy on the corner, and then find another guy who
they're going to take. They're going to take like the backup right tackle from East-West Missouri State Tech of Texas at at Akron, Ohio, South State, and he's going to become a stud for them for the next decade and a half. But
yeah, it's ridiculous how well they're able to hone in on a player's ability to do the thing that they do well, and then put them in that situation. But they also don't have a ton of receiver help out there, and I mean, Gronkowski's maybe retired. We don't know.
Oh, he's officially retired.
Huh?
He officially retired.
Oh, he's all done, huh?
Yeah, he gone.
Well, I've heard that Irv Smith is a pick that could go here, but I don't think he's a Gronk replacement by any means.
Oh.
And I think there's other guys on the board that are a little bit more valuable to them. I'm going to go N'Keal Harry. I think N'Keal is a good player. You put him with Tom Brady and his skill set, and he's going to be a 75 catch, close to 1,000 yards, maybe 6 touchdown guy.
Yeah, I love N'Keal Harry. He is my wide receiver one. I get Des Bryant flashbacks when I watch N'Keal Harry. And like, he had questions about his long speed, which is always kind of funny because if you watch the tape, yeah, he doesn't win with separation, but he'll catch the ball and then everyone's chasing after him for the entire time. Like, he's a great route runner. He has fantastic hands, and he won't beat you and like have 3 yards of separation when he catches it, but he'll catch it and then he's just running away from you.
Yeah.
This is one of my guys. I love this pick, and it's just not fair that Tom Brady gets to finish out his career having the best receiver in this year's class with him.
I agree, but
so yeah, we've gone through all 32. Surprisingly, there's only one first-round grade I have left sitting on the board, and that's Trayvon Mullen. But yeah, everyone else that I have a first-round grade on is already gone. So yeah, that does it for this year's class. Lawson does not have social media, so if you don't like his picks, that's a little too fucking bad. If you don't like my picks, you can find me on here. It's also too fucking bad. But you can also, follow me on Twitter at Mike Spencer KKS. You can follow the channel on Instagram at King Kraken Sports. What you can expect from me tomorrow, I've got my defensive back ratings going out, and that's it before the draft process because I have 2 exams within 3 days next week, including including the day before the NFL draft and the day after round 1 of the NFL draft. I am going to be far too busy to be trying to put together any fucking last minute mock drafts, last minute surprises, anything like that. Then I work the entire weekend, so you won't be seeing any draft grades from me until probably Monday. And we'll knock that out when we get there. That's going to do it for us today. As always, guys, like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend to tell another friend. Lawson, you and I have to do more videos than just this because the people like you, probably more than they like me.
Oh man, it's just a combo of the two, man.
Yeah. I mean, we're like PB and J. Like,
oh my God.
Yeah, you kind of need both of us in order for it to be good. This, as usual, man, this was as much fun as it always is. It was really nice to get this done in like under 2 hours for once. It was really nice to do this before 10 at night, what we've done every year prior, because Lawson is an hour ahead of me. So when we would go at 10 p.m. and go 2 hours, This dude's up till 1 a.m. Generally during exam periods for both of us. You know, if I ever do make money off of this, I owe you a little bit of it for whatever views these get.
No, good, man. Big thanks to having me back again on the channel. I appreciate it. It's been fun as always, man.
All right, guys. So that's going to do it for us today. Take care. I will see you guys next week. Lawson, we'll probably be talking about the draft the entire time.
That's it.
All right. Let's get out of here.
Let's do it.